Good morning, everyone. Very warm welcome to all of you joining this session. Actually, today's discussion is extremely important for anyone who is preparing for CISSP. I mean, this is not a lecture. This is about how you tackle your problems related to CISSP and what domains we cover. So today we'll be talking about domain 2, and we will test our knowledge, how we stand. And I know this session is going to be very interesting and interacting. And today we have with us again Manoj sir, who is being a passionate coach who keep on coaching people who really look for CISSP certification. So stay tuned, and we will be discussing various other aspects related to domain 2. So starting with the introduction of Manojji. So he's been a military veteran for last 20 years. He has served the Indian Navy, and now he is on a mission to serve the cybersecurity, especially the related to CISSP. So we'll be sticking our discussion to CISSP today, and in future we will be bringing up with various other aspects related to cybersecurity field. So as the hot topic is domain 2, so as per the exam perspective, it takes 10 percentage, 10% of the course. It has that weightage, 10% of it from the entire 8 domains. So the okay, let me just share the agenda with you guys so that you can have the proper clarity about it. Just a moment, please. All right. So we will try to understand about the mindset related to domain 2, how you will be preparing in a proper way, giving your qualitative time, not the quantitative time for the preparation of CISSP. What are all objectives that are covered in domain 2, and how we are going to understand, and what is the correct mindset or framework we should follow, what type of questions are asked during the exam related to domain 2, and how to prepare in a very systematic and effective manner. All will be talking about all this, so stay tuned, don't leave it, because this session is going to add value to your knowledge. People, if you are looking for your preparation very seriously for CISSP, so I warmly welcome Manojji to the call. Manojji, welcome to the call, and let's discuss in depth about domain 2 asset security. So, sir, starting with the call, would you like to throw some light how has to be the mindset related to CISSP, and how we are going to just talk about this topic over here? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. And hi, guys. Hi, viewers. This is, very special sessions which we have for our audience. All those people who are preparing for CISSP season, I think these sessions are going to be a game changer for them. And in this, because so many people start, learning about CISSP, they go through the books and this and that, a lot of things, but they forget what is the main objective and what is going to be tested in the exam. So I think these sessions are helping you for that. And as madam has asked the first question for today, again the same thing, what kind of mindset we should be having for when we are preparing for the CISSP, right? So guys, as I keep saying last time also, if you remember, I told you the same thing, right? You know what, when you prepare for CISSP, everything is so crisp and everything is so smooth. So you can see on this picture on the left hand side, the road is smooth, you plan for it accordingly. But when you really go to the CISSP exam, this is oftentimes a very bumpy ride, which you can see on your right. So many people get surprised, they are taken by the surprise when they prepare and then they appear for the CISSP exam. So these sessions are going to help you to get understanding of the entire thing, because these CISSP exam and let's say CISA exam as well, or CSAM exam also, they are not kind of something which you read and then you go and start taking the exam. That is all about putting yourself into the shoes, putting yourself into the shoes of a security professional. So you will be tested with a lot of scenarios in the exam, and that is the right mindset to have. Okay, so that is my first advice when it comes to the CISSP part. Okay, now as madam also told, what kind of mindset we should be having when you guys are preparing for the asset security. As you know, every domain in CISSP requires a different mindset when you are preparing for it. Now, in this case, when you are preparing for domain number 2, there is a particular mindset here as well. So, in this, what you need to think, I think you need to think as if you have been hired by a company and you are a security leader, a senior security leader, and you are going to set up their data governance all around across the company, and then how you do it. So that is the kind of mindset in this entire thing. Now, I would also like to add, even though this particular domain is only contributing to 10% of your CISSP, don't take it lightly. And I would say this is one of the most important, you can see, domain into the entire CISSP, because this is where we talk about data. And data is the most important item and asset in a particular company anybody can have, right? So all and everything in this domain is going to revolve around data. Okay, now uh, before I go and madam will take us through some objectives, all of it as well, guys. One fundamental mindset for this domain: number one, just imagine you have a pen and you're dipping it into the ink, and then you are drawing a line like this. What you feel the line would look like? There is always going to be a central dark line, and because you dip it into the ink, there will be something spreading across that dark line as well. Sir, the same thing happens with data also. As a security guy, you have to always think about data. The first thing which should come to your mindset is always data. And because data is intangible in most of the cases, yes, you can print it, you can keep it, it is in files and this and that you can do, and you can secure them separately as well. But most of the cases now in digital world, in cyber security, information security, we have data which is also in the intangible form. Now how you are going to secure it is going to be a big challenge, because this data is going to be sometimes placed on a hard drive. It might also be traveling over a network link or a Wi-Fi link, or sometimes it might also get processed within a business application and all of it. So the data can take different forms, and in all these kind of forms, you need to make sure that you are securing it. That's quite challenging. And when the data is getting stored, processed, or transmitted onto a particular asset, you know what we call it? All those assets which are actually holding, processing, or transmitting data, they're all called as information asset. And because of that, guys, let me connect you back to the CISSP again here. It is saying certified information system security professional. So information systems are all those systems which are either storing, processing, or transmitting information, and you are going to be a champ of that. That is why this particular domain is so much important, so don't take it lightly. And overall, uh, this particular objective has 6 major objectives, and under those 6 objectives you have 19 sub objectives as well, and everything is a gem for setting up your mind and everything. So I think that give you a good around background of this particular domain. And with that said, over to you, madam.
Yeah, that was the great insight, sir. Now let's move ahead. Let's talk about the first objective, which says identity and classify information and assets. So how far this objective plays a major role while candidates prepare for their exam and all, and there are few objectives also under that. So would you throw some light on these objectives, starting with this, the first one?
Oh yeah, yeah. I think this is one of the objective which sets the entire foundation for this particular domain, because this tells you, number one, whenever you are going to set up your security program, I think the fundamental question to be asked is what I am going to protect. And when you try to identify what I am going to protect, you will go and always take a data centric approach. You are going to discover your data, where all it is lying, and then wherever it is lying, either it is lying on a system, it is like getting processed in a business application, all of it. So you need to first identify all those data assets or information assets which are touching the data, and you need to have a strong inventory in the first place. When you have this inventory, then fundamental question to be asked is all the data carrying the same classification or same value for the company? And then your answer may be no. No, man, there is some data which is there on my website that is anyways meant for people to be accessed. I don't have anything to hide for that particular data. But on the other side, let's say you have a intellectual property, you have recently did a patent, right? In that particular case, can you just share your patent onto your website? No, right? So all the information assets are not of equal value, and you need to identify, you need to actually on a company wide have some kind of process which will help you to validate, okay, what is the value of this particular data, or what is the value of this particular asset. So as you can see in this objective, we have two sub objectives. 2.1.1, it focus on the data classification. Now, obviously, have you ever heard that somebody is putting your data into an inventory? No, you might not have never heard, because it's not possible. We generate a huge amount of data in the company on an everyday basis, right? That's not possible. But what we can do is, definitely those important data what you have, you can always have a process to classify your data based on the value. And for that, you need to have a strong information classification policy. And that policy should clearly give you some kind of structure, right? It should give you a very clear structure on what kind of data it is. Because data can also be of different type. Data can be business critical, right? If the data is not available, then this is critical for the business. On the other side, data can also be sensitive. And when we say sensitive data, means what? It is mostly the personal data, including your password, your employee information. All of this is coming under the sensitive information part. And if anything of that sort is getting compromised, because there are laws you have to think about, right? From a domain one perspective, right? So, in that, if a particular information, even though it's not very critical for the business, if it is stolen or let's say compromised, then your company has to pay heavy fines for that. When it comes to data as well and evaluating the value of the data, the third important factor is, uh, you know uh, what is the impact if this data is not available today? It is available, but let's say it is lost somehow, then what will be the impact? Maybe that information is of not much of business relevant value for you, but you are holding it. But if it is getting compromised, then you have to pay heavy fines. So you have to see from the value perspective all this particular data. So when we do the data classification, we are doing it based on the criticality, we are doing it based on the you can say sensitivity and the impact to the company. Now this entire thing, how people will follow in the company, obviously you need to have a strong information classification policy. And in those things, maybe we'll talk a little bit more on that. So but that is how the data has to be classified. Now the second objective here is 2.1.2, and this is fairly simple to understand now, because if you are able to classify your data, then the data on whichever asset it is lying, the asset classification will be driven by the classification of the data. And if there are questions in the exam, let's say they ask you, a particular security professional has got a hard drive, and that hard drive has multiple type of information lying on this, and some of the information is critical, or let's say few of the information is critical, then what should be the classification level of that particular asset? So in that case, you have to always go with the highest classification of the asset, right? So guys, that is very very important, right? Just one final punch when it comes to the objective number 2.1. Whenever we talk about classification, classification is a very defined process. You need to have a policy which clearly defines each and everything, so that everybody in the company can follow the same process. On the other side, when it comes to uh, sometimes the classification itself is not enough. Let's say you have some kind of information, let's say you have healthcare information, you have payment related information, you have sensitive personal information, and you have classified all of them as confidential. Now, are you going to put up same controls for them? Maybe no, because HIPAA might require some additional controls for you. So based on that, you are going to further categorize them into healthcare information, personal information, or client information, or finance information. Like that, you are going to do that categorization as well. So classification and categorization both goes hand in hand, and too much granularity on the classification is also not good, because this will lead to a lot of resources you have to spend. Because in your classification policy, when you define the classification criteria, you also define the handling instructions as well. So anyways, that's what objective number 2.1. So I think, sorry for long explanation, but that's the fundamentals of the entire domain too. So I went through this. Okay, over to you, ma'am.
Yeah, that was really very tricky and a thin line between classification and categorization. And guys, if you are really finding this session useful, drop a comment below saying yes, and you needing more and more explanation on the upcoming objectives here also. So let's come on to the second objective, which talks about establish information and asset handling requirements. I think this is also the critical one and the tricky one, and it also, as per me, it also has a great importance from the CISSP exam perspective, and it has sub objectives also, which talks about asset marketing and labeling, baseline selection as per the value of the asset. So, sir, please go ahead and throw some light on this objective too.
Okay, ma'am, sure. So again, this is where we had some fundamental in case of 2.1. Now we are going to take it little bit more further, right? So in the previous objective, we were talking about the classification policy by itself. And this is going to be a completely non-ambiguous policy, because you're not the only one who is going to create data and classify them on a day-to-day basis. It's everybody in the company who will be designated, you can say, person who is going to deal with that particular data. So you need to have a very clear information security, information classification policy. And for that fundament, where do we start? We start with setting up the inventory. You need to have a robust inventory and a single point of truth for all your security needs. And then you need to make sure that categorization and classification of the data is there based on the value of the asset to the company. And then data classification policy also talks about what to do once you understand, okay, this value, this particular data is important for me, the value is high, and I'm going to tag it as confidential. Then what is the next step? This information should also come from the policy by itself. See, you just identifying some information is important for me does not mean that others also know that this is a important information. So the next thing which your data classification policy should say is all about labeling and marking. Okay, now there's a thin line difference between labeling and marking, and we will be using both of them. So when it comes to labeling, it might be a barcode, it might be some kind of tracking code or something you are putting on the asset, for tracking purposes, and that is more about system readable, and that is externally attached to it. On the other side, when we talk about the marking, it is something which is human readable, and that goes those kind of marking, kind of like something is engraved onto the document, let's say metadata, or let's say you see a car engine, the chassis number will always be engraved on the engine. You can migrate it in different cars and all, but that thing remains the same. So it goes long term. So idea is that the classification policy should clearly talk about how to label or mark all these particular data. And when they do so, it has to be completely based on the value of the asset. And then there has to be defined classification levels. For example, when it comes to classification levels for data, uh, it, it might be different for military and might be different for corporate. So when it comes to military, there are classification labels. Let's say top secret, which is a severe damage, or you can say grave damage to the national security. Then comes secret, which is considered as a great damage, like just little below than top secret. And then there is confidential and unrestricted as well, which is kind of, it can cause damage and all. And unrestricted means even though it may not cause damage, but this is internal to the company. On the other side, when it comes to the corporate world, we don't follow such a structured process for classification, but different company may have different classifications which has been defined. For example, you can go with let's say companies say confidential. So if some information is confidential, means if that lost, will be a severe damage to the business by itself. Okay. Similarly, when it says internal, so it has to be used internally, right? Or you can call it as private as well. So in this, the information belongs to or has to be dealt with within some group within the company, kind of thing. And then proprietary, you know that it has to be proprietary. So you need to understand all this. Now, once all these things are clearly defined in your policy, very, very important thing is your policy will also give you direction about which particular baseline has to be followed. Now, since I have used a new keyword here, you should know what is actually a baseline. So end of the day, why you are doing all this circus, why you are doing all this data classification, inventory, this and that, because you want to make sure that the controls we are going to put on data is really the ones, right? It is really meeting my requirements. And that is whole purpose of classification as well. Once you classify a particular asset or a category of asset or data, then you need to also talk about the controls you are going to put for it. And then when we implement controls for that in the company, it is normally based on some kind of baseline. We will prepare a baseline. Let's say in your company, you might have seen all the endpoints, your laptop. It has a baseline which is defined for all the laptops. And you can see a level of standardization within your entire company itself. How it is happening? Because they have decided, I need antivirus software, I need patching, I need encryption, and I need a web security gateway agent on my system, or a CASB system on my this thing. I need a DLP. All these kind of things, they are creating a baseline, right? Now, these baselines might be different for different classification tiers. That also has to be mentioned in your classification policy. Okay. So any asset which need to be protected more, obviously the baseline is going to be more heavier, and a particular asset which is of less value, maybe that will have little less controls in the baseline. So that is also very, very important. And accordingly, you also need to understand that the baseline, if let's say today I have some information and I am following some kind of baseline for it, very, very heavy controls baseline for it. And let's say after 10 years, that information is not so much important to me. I am going to still follow the same baseline? Answer is no. So there has to be a process of something called as information declassification as well. It is not that you are going to reduce those control by yourself. There has to be a formal process that this particular information is not of great value. neither criticality is impacted, not sensitivity is getting impacted. So let's go and declassify this particular information. The moment we declassify it, we are going to switch over to a lower baseline, and that lower baseline may be costing less for your company. So that is how it has to happen. Now, it is also very worth to talk about that all this information, end of the day, is lying onto some kind of media. It can be physical hard drive, it can be a physical paper, it can be an external drive, all this kind of thing. So you need to also have procedures which are defined for media handling as well. For example, where you are going to store your media, there has to be, normally in a media there is a media library and a person designated as a librarian for that, so that every media, let's say you are purchasing 500 drives in your company, and let's say you are going to decommission 500 drives from your company, all those first go to the library, and there has to be somebody accountable for it. And accordingly, we are going to secure any media which is even blank, not only filled, even blank media need to be protected, because that can be misused. So that is also very important. Next thing is media retention, because you have some data and let's say useful life is over, and you need to now retain that media, let's say for next 20 years. So you need to make sure that all the environmental controls and everything is there. Otherwise, one fine day when you need this data back from this media, you are not able to retrieve, then what is the use, right?
Right.
When the retention period is over, you need to also destruct the media as well. And how securely you are going to delete, that is also very very important. And believe me, these media assets will sometimes also carry evidences, and when it carry evidences, it becomes much more critical, because the company may also have some e-discovery request coming up, and if you're not securing these media better and don't go through a structured process, then this can cost you very very heavy, right? So that is how you are going to make baselines, and those baselines need to be implemented based on the value of the asset in the inventory. And then how do you identify the value, or how do you identify the risk to a particular information? Because some information is more important because this is exposed to the internet, some may not be exposed to the internet. So you need to perform a risk assessment, and then you can follow any kind of good framework, let's say NIST or ISMS, from where you are going to pick up these particular controls, and then you are going to roll it out. You are going to make people trained on all the data controls we are going to have. So that is what, again, sorry, my bad, guys. Long explanation, but I think this gives you the right perspective, right?
Yes, absolutely. The perspective was very granular, and I hope the audience will be relating. People who are really preparing this year, they must be relating the entire concept. So, guys, if you really want to upscale your game of clearing CISSP, do reach us out. We have the entire complete ecosystem made for candidates, the CISSP aspirants. We call it CISSP Success Toolkit, and we have 650 plus success stories with us, and we are on a mission to create another huge amount of success stories this year. So what this program includes, it has 100 days. It is a 100 days program. It is not a boot camp at all. So in 100 days, you will be getting like more than 250 plus hours of coaching by Manoj Sharma himself, uh, by Manoj sir himself, and it is a one-stop solution. You don't require to buy any material outside. We have everything with us. It is a fantastic program which covers 60 plus hours of live sessions, which purely focus on your exam preparation, what has to be your mindset and framework and everything. Then we even assist the candidates who require some more clarification on the topic. So we conduct 30 plus hours of doubt clearing session. We call them refresher sessions as well. So you don't require any heavyweight books. We have our own exam engine, so you need not worry about anything. And on top of that, there is one-on-one mentorship. Suppose if you are demotivated, you get stuck somewhere, then Manoj sir is there to support you guys. Now, uh,
I think,
more
guys,
much of
I want
talking has
to.
happened about the program. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So I just want to add up one thing, guys. So one specific feature which is very unique about this particular program is we go and train you how to prepare and pass the exam, not just knowing the content.
Correct.
So there are dedicated 60 plus hours of classes, and you will be practicing live with me. I will teach you how to read the question, how to comprehend the question, how to go and find the body keywords, how to do all that. And the answering and sensing a question right has to be a second behavior by yourself, isn't it? So I think nobody else is doing this particular thing, because we take this thing with a great passion and the thing. And if you're really focused about passing your CISSP exam, you're somebody who is serious about it, then definitely this program is for you. Okay, ma'am. Sorry, back to you. So yeah.
No, that's absolutely fine, and it is required to. Okay, now let's move on to another objective which talks about provision information and asset security. And there are few sub objectives like information and asset ownership, asset inventory, whether the assets are tangible or intangible. We'll talk about it. We'll throw some light on this too, and asset management. And asset management, it's really the important topic, if I'm not wrong, Manoj sir.
Yeah,
Would
yeah,
you
yeah.
like to throw
Very,
some
very
light on this
important
objective
and very
too?
testable in the exam. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's take this one as well, guys. This objective says provision information and asset securely. What is provisioning? When you go and roll it out, something in the production is called as provisioning, right? So you all the time you need to make sure that your assets are securely provisioned and they are maintained accordingly as well. And that is why this particular objective play a important role, and this gives you some very fundamental understanding of the entire thing. In the objective number 2.1, we have spoken already about the asset inventory, right? So your asset inventory is going to be a combination of different type of assets. Now this can also be a server. uh, so the system, the inventory is going to pull up some information from that particular hardware as well. That is called as hardware inventory. And at the same time, the system should also pull up some information related to the softwares which are installed on those kind of systems. And that is called as software inventory. So all the assets which we are having in our inventory, they may be hardwares and softwares as well. And very important, because this is where many people do the mistake, it also should cater for any virtual assets as well. If you have a virtual machine spinning up on the cloud, yes, it is part of your inventory. If you have your server room and let's say you have one server and there are 10 virtual machines spinning off it, every virtual machine has to be treated as a different asset. So that's how your inventory will capture all these particular information. And your inventory should also be able to capture about their configuration, their version, and these kind of things, because this will help you to track your baseline for configuration management as well. Okay, so that's a very, very critical point. Now I'm coming back on the objective number 2.3.1, where we are saying information and asset ownership. Guys, if there are multiple owners, let's say, to a particular asset, everybody will be thinking that somebody else will do for it, isn't it? And that will not work. So there is a concept, something called as information and asset ownership, so that every asset in your inventory must have an owner in the first place. If a asset does not have an owner, that means it's a orphaned asset, and you have to have a process to deal with it effectively. So you should have 100% of the asset which are defined with their owners. Now when I say owners, so honor itself is a word, and I want to take this as a hardwiring in your mind for your CISSP, CSM exam, and all of it. When we say owners, means directly accountability. And what is the difference between accountability and responsibility? Accountability cannot be shared. Even if you delegate some accountability to your subordinate, the accountability part, the formal accountability, still remains with you. So there are multiple roles in data handling. For example, the first role is called as asset owner. So if, let's say, any kind of asset, let's say there is a server, and for that there has to be a designated asset owner who is going to be accountable for that particular asset or the system, and their key responsibility will be making the system security plan, ensuring appropriate controls are there, and then any kind of change management and those kind of things, it has to go with that approval from that particular guy, right? Similarly, the data as well is also having a owner. When we say data owner, that means what? The particular head of that particular department is going to, in most of the cases, is going to be the data owner. For example, there is a server, and that particular server hold information about HR, about legal, and some other departments as well. And let's say one particular set of data which is hosted on that particular server is going to be owned by the HR. So the HR head is going to be the owner for that particular information. He is going to be accountable for that particular information. Yes, this entire system might be owned by the IT team, or maybe IT designation, the boss there, right? And that particular asset owner means that will be responsible, that particular person will be responsible for that particular asset, system security plan, and all of it. But the specific data set will be owned by the data owner for that. So I think this is a critical difference, and you are tested again and again in the exam for that. Then there is a role called as data or asset custodian. Now, what is a custodian? A custodian is definitely not the person who is accountable for it. These are the people who are helping you for the day-to-day responsibility for protecting the information. Now, this can be done by your IT team, even I would say security team also is a kind of data custodian, because we are giving that service for day-to-day maintaining the particular data as per the direction from the data owner, because they are the final accountable guy, right? So all the backup, all the archiving, all those kind of daily controls we implement is implemented by the data asset or custodian. So the keyword here is implementation. Data owner or asset owner, is the keyword is accountability. And because these are business leaders, it's not that they will be running around all the time doing, okay, who has classified the information, this and that, because a asset owner or data owner has a lot of responsibility, or sorry, accountability. They are the people who are going to define what is the purpose of this information, what is the value of this information for the company, how this information will be classified, how this particular information is going to be retained, how we are going to destruct it, for how long we need it. All these kind of critical decision making is always done by the data owner, and if it is an asset, it will be done by the asset owner. So please understand the thin line difference. Only the asset owner or data owner is going to be accountable, and rest all people are going to be responsible. And on those lines, responsible lines, we have already discussed about the asset custodians. Now, when it comes to data owner, it might also be that few business units, because your company may have different line of business as well. So their bosses, like their top leadership, is going to be the those business owners, all those kind of people are going to be the data owner for their respective information. Okay, now this is a critical understanding, but on the other side, there is one more role which always people get confused, and that is data steward. So this role is actually designated by the data owner all the time, and he is responsible for managing the quality, the usability, compliance for the data which is there. So you can call them as more about something like a QA team, which makes sure that data is being maintained with the right way, how it has to be maintained. And their key responsibility include also maintaining the data definition, monitoring the data usage, and facilitating the entire data governance. They are not finally accountable again, they are also responsible only. So Many people get confused between data owner and data steward in the exam. So don't get puzzled about it. It is all about accountability when it comes to owner, and it's all about responsibility, designated responsibility, I would say, for the data steward. Okay, so that is kind of very important. And then also, to add one more thing, the roles little changes when you go outside the company. All these roles we have discussed is within the company. Let's talk about outside the company. So outside the company might be that one company is collecting information from a citizen, and it might be also taking information from other clients and all of it. So there are different roles from a GDR perspective. So the first role is your data controller. So data controller is an organization or an entity who is going to collect information from you with a specific purpose. They are going to decide the purpose, and they are the final accountable party for whenever they collect this particular information. So please remember that. The second thing is data processor. Now, the data controller might not be able to process all of this data by itself. So they may take some third party help, right? Might be hosting data on AWS, or might be hiring a particular company for processing that particular information. They are all called as data, I would say, processor, and they are not directly accountable. The data controller has to make them accountable. Now, I will give a very simple example to understand this. I know this can be very confusing. So just think about in India. If you're in India, you have Aadhaar card, which is considered as your social security number. Now, this is you who is going to share the information when you're going to make your Aadhaar card. So you are data subject. Who is collecting information from you is the Indian government, UIDAI, who is the regulator for that, right? They are the accountable party. So they becomes data controller. Now, this entire data controller may not be able to process that information all the time. We have so many citizens in India, and there's a huge work. So they have delegated this task to banks and all of it. They have contracts with them, and they're all the banks are nothing but called as data processors. So I think that will help you to clarify it with a clear example. And then the asset has to be managed as per the classification level which has been defined in your classification policy. You are going to maintain the same baseline for it throughout its life cycle. So again, lengthy explanation. Thankfully, we have less objectives in this particular domain, so we have good time to go and churn these, right? So over to you, ma'am. Back.
Yeah, by listening you, I can totally relate. This is the area where generally the candidates they stuck and they get confused. But with so much of clarity now, I think the people they will be able to understand this concept in a very systematic manner. Now let's moving on to the next objective, which talks about managed data life cycle. Now, what is this managed data life cycle? And it has various sub objectives too, which talk about like data roles, data location, data retention, data collection. Oh my God, there are many. Data maintenance and remnants.
Yeah,
Oh my God, data destruction. This is the huge buffet over here I'm seeing about how to manage data lifecycle. So please throw some
correct.
light about it. And I'm sure audience is really enjoying the session and even learning too. So guys, do comment below if you have any specific doubts. Most welcome. Do comment below and we'll try to answer them all. Thank you. Sir, please, let's move ahead and talk about this managed
Great
data
going,
life
ma'am.
cycle.
Great going. Let's go on this objective, and this is a beautiful objective which actually set up your mindset as a security professional. How the controls need to trace a particular asset throughout its life cycle. So this is really very wonderful. So guys, data has a life cycle. Just like we have a life cycle, data also have a life cycle. So in the first place, data is getting collected, and when the data is getting collected, it is very important that you have the respective controls implementation for that. Let's say your company is collecting some information from citizens or employees or somebody else. In the first place, you should implement data minimization. You remember we discussed about the
Right.
privacy 1.5 in the last webinar. We spoken about the privacy
Yes.
OECD baseline, and in that OECD baseline one particular thing is all about data minimization. So try to collect minimum
Correct.
information from the end customer, because that's the best way to secure the data in the first place.
Yes,
Second thing,
obviously.
when you are collecting this information, then you have to be transparent in your approach. You cannot be like, yes, I collected that information, now I will do whatever I want. Nobody, that is not going to work. You are going to be very transparent, and you can see that obviously after GDPR has been implemented. Now every website will have a privacy policy, otherwise the payment gateways will not give their access to them. They will not be able to integrate
Agree.
the payment gateways, right? That is how so important it is. And then whenever you are collecting information from the end customer, you need to make sure that you are taking a specific explicit consent about them, not in a direct way but direct way, that yes, we are collecting this information from you, this is the purpose it is, and would you like to share for it. If the data person says no, I'm not going to give my consent, it's okay, not you to provide that service to them, but that has to be, consent has to be obtained. Okay. The next important thing is data location as well. And data location comes very it becomes super important when it is all about you are collecting information from multiple countries. Let's say some GDPR information you are collecting here in India, play a very important role. You have to be always focused on that, because end of the day, when you collect the information or create the information, you are going to store it somewhere. When you are going to store it, you need to be very aware with data localization as well. There are countries which says data should not cross my political boundaries. Now what you do, you have no options, right? For example, GDPR says that the data which is there related to the European Union citizen has to be within Europe. It cannot go out. And then they have also described in what conditions it may go out. So they have given some, you can say, corporate governance rules, all these kind of stuff. So these are nothing but, you can say, data, transborder data transfer clauses, and you have to abide with them if you are collecting that information from them. So you need to make sure whenever you are storing data, you are getting abide with that. And then obviously there are a lot of technical controls. There has to be access control, which is first line of defense. You are going to implement role-based access control. You are going to implement encryption. You need to go and follow all the data localization sovereignty kind of rules out there. So that is about the data storage. The next thing comes here is, yes, I have stored the data, but why I have stored the data in some place? Because at some point in time, I want to use it, man. So when you use the information, there is also a lot of controls which are implemented. You know what? Role based access control, it's a strict access control, because when people are going to use the data, we have to think, right? A normal user, why he will be going and doing some database changes? Database changes has to be done only by the particular database admin. So information is being used, but you have to make sure that appropriate people have access rights which are very clearly defined, who can do what while using it. And then in some cases, it might also be that you have to process some confidential data, or let's say you have to process some privacy information as well. For example, there is, your company is meeting PCI DSS controls, and then you are going to develop a payment application in which you want to test out those particular credit card numbers. Can you put the credit card numbers there? No, it's
No.
not good. It's not permitted at all. So in that case, what you do, either you do data masking or you redact the data by itself, and then only you are going to use it. So when you are going to use the information, you have to think about all these kind of stuff. The next phase of the entire data life cycle is data sharing. When you share the data with others, and it can be very risky also, man. Why I'm saying risky? Let's say today you are going to share some information, let's say with some external agent, external contact. And let's say instead of sending to one particular contact, you are sending it to a particular distribution list. That distribution list may have 200 people. So one single copy of data has now turned into 201 copies, and there is no way to come back. Once you share the information with somebody else, you have already made 200 copies and you have no control on that information, because that information has gone to somebody else. You cannot just
Correct.
retrieve it back. So data sharing is very, very careful task. That is where every security professional should be very, very focused. You have to implement controls, let's say data loss prevention, to prevent any kind of exfiltration of the secure data or confidential data. You have to use secure transfer protocol whenever data is going to transfer. And then you have agreements with a lot of companies. Let's say you are using AWS or some other cloud service provider, you are going to have agreement with them how they are going to deal with your data once the entire normal life cycle is over. Then we also have to speak about data has to be retained for certain period in time, even though the useful life is over. So in that particular case, how long are you going to retain the particular data, isn't it? So that also
Correct.
has to be a defined policy, where I think in the next objective we'll talk about this. And then data disposal as well. So when we say data disposal, means the retention period is now over, and you have to make sure data is destructed in a way which is not recoverable. And this is where we can take two approaches. In one way, sometimes we need the media back. Let's say an employee going out and another employee coming in. The another one was using a laptop, and now you need to hand it over the same laptop to the next person out there. Then, in those kind of cases, we are going to reuse the media. When we want to reuse the media, there are normally two ways. So, one is called as data purging, and one is called as data clearing. So in the clearing, again, we are going to do multiple overwrite, but again, using advanced forensic tool, the data can still be recovered. If you need more security, then go for purging, because purging have multiple overwrite, zeroing, and all these kind of stuff. There are more rounds as well. So data cannot be recovered even after using advanced forensic tools. When somebody asks you in the CISSP exam, what is the best way to destruct the data? Guys, it is always about media destruction. So, in many cases, we go and destruct the media by itself. It may be because systems are getting decommissioned and all of it, but again, you are going to get rid of the data by destructing the media as well. So, in this category also, we have multiple, you can say, methods to do that. For example, there is something called as disintegration. This is where we break the something, and then we kind of shred it very, very well,
Shred it,
the
yes.
entire media. Pulverization, chemical treatment, melting it, like melting through heat. Insercination, burning it, turning into ashes, and it can also be shredding and all of it. You need to understand that these methods are all require investment. So you are going to follow the respective method which works for your company in terms of the value of data on the media, and the kind of how rigorous you want to go for it. Based on the costing and all, you are going to decide. Then also there are some media destruction method which might be uh, not working for all. For example, there is degaussing. Degaussing only works for magnetic media. It is not for normal SSDs. So that is important to consider. And what we do in case of SSDs, normally what we do, we go and do crypto erasure. I'm going to talk about that. And then we go and disintegrate it. That means disintegrate and destroy it completely. That is what disintegration is. And then once in all these two methods which I told you, where you want to reuse the media or you don't want to reuse the media, you were the boss of your hard drive, right? What if the hard drive is not with you? Let's say you are going with a third party data center, or let's say you are having a resource, your workload hosted on cloud. Can you ask them hard drive, okay, give it to me, I want to destruct? Nobody, not gonna happen. So in those kind of cases, we go with something called as crypto erasure. And crypto erasure is like, I have your data, you encrypted my data, but again, I'm not going to trust it. I'm going to use another key to encrypt my data one more time. And then I'm going to make sure that this particular key, which I used for encrypting my data, right, this is destroyed completely. Now the only problem is, uh, crypto eraser is effective. It's not that it's not effective, not the best way. But obviously, when data hard drive is not under your control, that's the only way we have. But again, the main thing is, if the key is destructed securely, one point. Second thing, before destructing, have you shared this key with multiple people? So if somebody has the key, then they can recover. That's the downside of crypto erasure as well. Okay, so I think again a long we have spoken a lot about this, right, in this objective. So ma'am, over to you.
Yeah, and the next objective is simply related to this, like how you are going to ensure asset retention. And it is, many people they assume data should be retained just in case, but I think it is quite risky.
Yeah,
So this objective also talks about like how you should appropriately retain the asset, and like examples are given here, like end of life or end of support. So sir, what is this and what it is talks about everything over here.
sure, sure, sure. And I realize that we are nearing 1 hour, man. Oh, we need to speed up a
Yeah,
little bit.
yes,
So
yes,
let me
yes,
do
yes.
one thing. Let me give you a simple, perspective about this. And this is a very simple objective, right? This talks about data retention. Number one, what is data retention? Retaining the data even if it is no more required by the business as well. Then
Mhm,
why at all you are retaining it? Because not just because of your business need. Most of the time the data retention is driven by the regulatory and legal requirement. Think about a
mhm,
college. They are taking information from a student, and they may have to retain that record for the next 100 years. Who would like to retain your asset for 100 years? Is it of business value to them? May not be. But again, they are holding this information for the 100 years because there is regulatory requirement on them, isn't it?
correct.
So that's the way. So this retention is heavily driven by the regulatory thing, and that is a very testable aspect in the exam as well. Sometimes you may also have e-discovery request, which is coming from somebody, let's say one of the employee working in your company is not currently working. He was working in the past, and now he went to another company and did some fraud. There's an investigation going on, and that company comes and file a legal suit against that employee, against that particular guy. And you are in the chain. Now they take a someone, okay, he has worked for this company, let's get his documentation, let's see his history and all. Now you have no way to reject for it. That's a e-discovery request, and there are frameworks to do that as well. Okay, so that is very, very important. And one very important aspect when we retain the data is the cost of retaining. The cost of retaining the media type which you are going to use for data retention has to be in appropriate according to the value of the data and how long you are going to retain it. Can you use and store the drive today, let's say some data on today, let's say on a floppy drive or maybe a CD drive? Absolute already. It is not available. So if you are going to store some information for long term, let's say next 100 years, are you going to store it there? Not at all. So you have to choose it carefully, the storage mechanism as well. And then the data retention policy should also talk about very, very clear, well defined way in which data retention is going to be followed. So your data retention policy must have a strong scope part, which should talk about data types, in what format, in hard format or soft format data is, and which all business unit is under their control. They should talk about legal and regulatory requirement, let's say applicability of GDPR, HIPAA, PCI DSS, and all of it. Then how long a particular set of data is going to be retained, that retention policy should very clearly define. It's an enterprise wide policy and should be very, very clearly defined. It should also talk about the locations of the data where the data is going to be stored or is planned to be stored. For example, it is being stored on prem, it is being stored on cloud, or there is offsite backups, and all of it has to be taken care of. Then what kind of controls need to be implemented when you are going to retain the data? When we are retaining a particular data, let's say in the form of a magnetic tape or some other media, that magnetic tape need to carry the same classification level as the original data. And if there is multiple classification of data stored which is there on the drive, then the highest classification need to be done. And if in some cases you have to take some exceptions as well, legal hold, right? If you are expecting some investigation is going on and the data retention is going to end on this date, and we have to go and immediately destruct the data, and some investigation is going on, you can anticipate that and take a legal hold. That is called as the exception process as well. Then whenever you are going to retain the data, there are two ways to retain it. One is backup and one is archiving. Backup is little short term, and archiving is a long term approach for retaining data. In a data backup, you have to restore the entire backup, then you are going to access a single file. In archiving, you can directly access it, right? So you have to see where we are going to use backup or where we are going to use the archiving. Then one more important aspect discussed in this objective is all about end of life and end of service support. Let's say you are using Windows 11 machines, and these Windows 11 machine, let's say Microsoft came and told you we are going to phase it out in 2030. So that's your end of life, right? And when they decide end of life, before that they will also say, okay, this is going to end up in 2030, but from 2028 we are not going to release any updates for that. So that is again very very important, and that's a security risk. So end of life is the management aspect of refreshing those devices and replacing them with the new one. And at the same time, end of service support is more security related stuff, because after that you are not going to get any updates. Let's say some system which is there in DNS exposed to the internet, and that particular operating system is not getting any more updates, then obviously it's a security risk. You have to take it accordingly, right, and mitigate for that. So that is what is part of this particular objective, ma'am. So back to you, ma'am. I think we are left with one more objective.
Yeah, the I think one more objective is here. Like, let's move on to this objective that looks really very simple on paper, but it's often misunderstood in the exam, which talks about determine data security controls and compliance requirements. Many candidates, they think this means, choosing encryption or asset controls. But CISSP is not asking what control exists; it's asking who decides, why the control is needed, and what obligation drives it. So, I would you like to talk about this objective too, sir?
Yeah, ma'am. And I would like to definitely emphasize this, because this is a very important section and very often tested as well. So you need to first understand, guys, when you are going to decide on the controls you are going to implement for your data, the first thing which comes in is the scoping. Scoping is a list of control you actually need to meet your security levels. That's your scoping.
Mhm.
For example, in ISMS, Information Security Management, ISO 27001, we have a statement of applicability. That document is nothing but called as scoping, right? And then once you have your list of controls you need, when you go to the market, you have a list of things you to purchase, right? Then you go to a particular framework, respective framework, and every framework nowadays provide you with a set of controls. So you are going to pick up those controls as per your requirement, and when you are going to implement, you might need to customize that based on your business requirement, based on your risk tolerance, based on your compliance needs. You need to go and do some tweaks, do some customization to that particular control, and that is called as tailoring. Okay, so that is very very
Yeah.
important to understand, the first thing. And next thing, it talks about data states. Now, what is data state? Now, there's a kid and there's a mother. The kid is sleeping, means the data is at rest. When the data is at rest, you need to obviously implement respective controls, let's say encryption, uh, storage related backups, and those kind of controls. When the kid is going to school, that is data in transmit. in the data in transmit, you have to think about controls we can put up to secure my kid when he is going to school or when the data is going to be transferred. So in that case, we are going to use secure protocols, link to link encryption or end to end encryption and those kind of things. Uh, so let's talk about a little bit. When the data is actually traveling, we have to secure it when the data is traveling. So we follow two type of encryption for data in transmit. One is called as link encryption. So in a link encryption, as we all know, data always travels in packets, and a particular network packet has two parts. One is the header part, another one is the data part. So in a link encryption, the data part as well and the header part, both of them are encrypted and then sent. And when they are encrypted, one single key is used. Now, when this particular data is going from point A to point B, it is go through multiple routers and all of it. Correct? Now, these routers, how do they know from where the packet is coming and where it has to go? They cannot find out because the header is encrypted. So they have to first decrypt it, and then they have to read the information and then encrypt it again for the next hop. This is exactly what happens when you are doing a credit card transaction. Your PIN number is decrypted and encrypted at each and every, you can say, payment switch or something like that. And all these operations are done in a HSM, hardware security module, to maintain security, all of it. Okay, so that is what is link encryption. Is a little insecure, looks like, because data is getting decrypted at all the time, but this is more suitable where the company has end-to-end connectivity with the two nodes. So that is one. The another one is end-to-end encryption, and you might have seen your WhatsApp, Teams, this and that. Whenever this comes to the end customer, we need to give them that comfort. We use end-to-end encryption. So in this, only the payload part is encrypted, not the header, and that is what will be done, and it will be sent. So there is no need to decrypt and encrypt the data during the transmit, and the only end from where the data has been encrypted is going to be the originating end, and the data is going to be decrypted at the destination end. So that is why we call it as end-to-end encryption. Also, many times people use some kind of onion routing as well, Tor and those kind of mechanism, that is to maintain their anonymity over the internet, because they use multiple levels of proxies. There is a lot of encapsulation. We will discuss in domain number 4. That is what is also used. That is more about keeping yourself hidden or anonymous over the internet, but it should not go beyond the legal boundaries, right? So that is something which we have to understand. And it is very difficult for tracing people back also. Nowadays, every hacker, they use Tor and all these kind of things, right? The next topic I want to talk about here is when you are going to protect the data, one of the things which comes in is called as obfuscation. Now, data obfuscation is obviously data hiding, and there are two ways to do that. Number one is anonymization. In anonymization, you redact the information completely. Let's say there is some credit card information and you cannot use it in the testing environment. So what you are going to do is you are going to reduce that information or delete that particular credit card related information. Rest all you are going to keep and then share it into the test environment. That is called as anonymization. For example, you are processing GDPR data, let's say in India, and let's say GDPR does not allow it. So you have to anonymize it and process it in other countries if they don't have respective, you can say, regulatory arrangement. So that's one. The another one is called as pseudomization, in which you might require data back. When I wanted to share an information, let's say for testing or giving to my friend, I'm not going to ask them back because there is no use. They already have a copy of data, right? When I use pseudomization, it's a reversible process, and that is where sometimes you need it. For example, we use data masking. In this, we are going to mask the data. Tokenization is completely replacing the data with a different random value. There is truncation as well, in which we truncate some portion of the data and replace that truncated part with a different set of information. And then we use pruning as well. We remove some sensitive information, kind of redacting thing itself. And in some cases, we also fabricate some kind of data, means add some additional noise and perturbation to the database so that people get confused, any hacker get confused. So these are certain approaches when, especially with sensitive information, we need to sometimes obfuscate it. In code level also, we do some kind of obfuscation techniques out there. Now, the final thing here is data protection method, and they talk about DRM. So DRM is digital right management. It is a suite of technology where they actually can control the information based on authentication and based on encryption. Both the two techniques are being applied so that the information, if there is an information which is your intellectual property, normally DRM controls are used, and now it has gained more and more popularity. You might be seeing you can download a Netflix movie within that particular player, but you cannot play it on your system on some other player, right? That's an example of DRM controls. Then many companies, they are sharing, let's say I share a PDF file with you, and that will have a embed, you can say, watermarking. So there is one watermarking which is visible, which you can explicitly put, but there is some kind of invisible watermarking as well, which will help you trace the license and where all you are trying to share my information. It can also restrict you from taking prints and this and that. In companies also, we prevent information through information right management. So the same thing is applicable here as well. Okay. And then there is one control, again, very popular control for data, and that is called as CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker. So this is a fantastic endpoint security control which is going to be installed on the endpoint, and anytime a particular employee is going to send some information onto the cloud, it has to go through the CASB solution. So this gives you visibility, number one. It prevents any kind of shadow IT, all these kind of things the company will be able to know. It will help you meet the compliance requirement for sure. And this will also give you additional controls for encrypting the data before you go and send some data to the cloud. And also it has some threat prevention as well. Automatically, it will identify the threat and, restrict you doing something kind of thing, right? It can prevent something from happening. So CASB is getting more and more popular nowadays. So I think, again, a long explanation, ma'am. Sorry, we are 1 hour 11 minutes into this session.
Yes.
So yeah, back to you, ma'am. Back to you.
No worries, sir. Such explanation requires timing, and I am totally agreeing. Our audience must be enjoying this session completely, and thank you so much for breaking down these objectives with so much of clarity and practicality. So, guys, all right, we are coming to the end of our today's session. But before winding up, I would like to say, join CISSP Success Toolkit program, join the ecosystem, and crack your goal of achieving CISSP in 2026. So you have approached really the correct platform. Now the new batch of CISSP preparation from Cybernos is starting from 24th of January. It is batch number 51, and the contact details are also reflecting on the screen. Do reach us out, and we are here to help you to achieve your goal in 2026. And thank you so much, sir, for being here. And I know everyone would have enjoyed it and they have related it to their preparation. So we'll continue. We'll keep on continuing on such important topics in our upcoming sessions. And thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. And
Thank
guys,
you, Manoj sir.
next week we are going to start with domain number 3. Very
Yes, domain number 3.
important, and so many people are actually they get pissed off from this topic. So next week we are gonna take that.
So
Okay.
very important discussion coming up next week.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
very
Thank you for joining, and stay happy, safe, and have a nice day. Thank you so much.